Black played. Knight e5. Pause the video to analyze white's next move. On h4. King d6. On b6. Knight c6 check. King b7. Knight e5. On h5. Knight d7. On h6. Knight f6. On e5 check. King takes e5. King c6. King f5. On b7. On e5. On promotes to queen at b8. On e4. Black is outplayed. Let's go to the next game. White played. King b3. Pause the video to spot black's next move. King takes e5. Knight g3. King f4. Knight e2 check. King e3. Black is preparing to play king takes e2 and secure a stronghold in the game. Knight g3 was chosen by white. King takes d3. King b4. King e3. Knight f5 check. King e4. Knight d6 check. King f4. Knight takes f7. On g3. King c4. On g2. King takes d4. On promotes to queen at g1 check. King d5. Black has a strong upper hand. Let's go to the next game. Black just played. Knight f1. Pause the video to analyze white's next move. King takes f7. Knight takes h2. King takes e6. King b6. King f7. White wants to play. On e6. Knight f3. On e7. On g5. On promotes to queen at e8 and dominate the board. Knight f1 was chosen by black. King takes g6. Knight takes g3. On f5. King c7. On f6. King d7. On f7. White is preparing to play. Pawn promotes to queen at f8 and establish a winning position. King e7 move preferred by black. King g7. Knight f5 check. King g8. King e6. On promotes to queen at f8. White is setting up to play. Queen f6 check. King d5. Queen takes f5 and secure a stronghold in the game. King takes e5. White is clearly ahead. Let's go to the next game. White made a move. Knight f4. Pause the video to analyze black's next move. White is looking to play knight takes h3 and establish a winning position. Knight takes f4 was chosen by black. King takes f4. On b4. King f3. King f8. King f4. King e7. King e5. On h5. King f4. On h4. Black wants to play. On g5 check. On takes g6. On takes g6. King f3. On g5. King f2. King d6. King g2. On g4 and establish a winning position. King f3 was chosen by white. On g5. On f6 check. King takes f6. King e4. King e6. Black is setting up to play. On g4. King f4. On h3. On d5 check. King takes d5. King takes g4. On h2 and take decisive advantage. King f3 played by white. King d5. King g4. King takes d4. King f3. Black has a decisive advantage. Let's go to the next game. White played. Knight d3 check. Pause the video and try to find black's next move. Knight takes d3. King takes d3. King f4. Black considers playing. On e5. King c3. King takes e4 and take decisive advantage. King d4 played by white. King takes g4. King e5. King f3. King takes e6. King takes e4. King d6. King f5. King c7. On g5. On takes g6. King takes g6. King takes b6. On h5. King takes a5. On h4. King b6. On h3. On a5. On h2. On a6. On promotes to queen at h1. Black is aiming to play queen a8. King c5. King f7. King b5. King e6 and gain a significant edge. On b4 black has a strong upper hand. Let's go to the next game. White just played knight e8 check. Pause the video to find out black's response. King e5. King e7. Knight takes g3. Knight f6. Knight f5 check. On takes f5. On takes f5. Knight d7 check. King f4. Knight b6. On g3. Black is setting up to play on g2. Knight c8. On promotes to queen at g1. Knight d6. Queen c5. King e6. Queen e5 check. King d7. Queen d5 and seize the initiative. King f6 move preferred by white. On g2. Knight d5 check. King e4. Knight c3 check. King d4. Knight e2 check. King e3. Black is aiming to play king takes e2 and gain a significant edge. Knight g1 was chosen by white. On f4. King g5. On f3. Knight h3. On f2. Black is aiming to play pawn promotes to queen at f1 and dominate the board. Knight takes f2 played by white. King takes f2. King f4 black has a decisive advantage. Let's go to the next game. White played knight h2 check. Pause the video and try to find black's next move. King f4. Knight f3. On g4. Black is preparing to play pawn takes f3 and secure a stronghold in the game. Knight e1 was chosen by white. On g3 check. King f1. King e3. Knight c2 check. King d2. Black is looking to play on h2. King g2. King takes c2 and increase their advantage significantly. Knight a3 played by white. King c3. Knight b1 check. King takes c4. Knight d2 check. King d3. Black is looking to play king takes d2 and take decisive advantage. Knight b1 move preferred by white. On h2. Black wants to play pawn promotes to queen at h1 mate and seize the initiative. King g2 was chosen by white. On c4. King h1. On b5. Knight a3. On b4. Black wants to play pawn takes a3 and gain a significant edge. Knight b1 move preferred by white. On c3. Black's idea is to play on c2. King g2. On promotes to queen at cx b1 and increase their advantage significantly. King g2 move preferred by white. On c2. Black is setting up to play pawn promotes to queen at cx b1 and put immense pressure on the opponent. Knight d2 was chosen by white. On promotes to queen at h1 check. King takes h1. On promotes to queen at c1 check. King g2 white is on the verge of defeat. Let's go to the next game. Black played knight e5. Pause the video to spot white's next move. On h5. King d6. King h4. King d5. King g5. King e6. On h6. White is preparing to play. On h7. King d7. King h6. Knight f7 check. King g7. King e6. On g4, and secure a stronghold in the game. King f7 move preferred by black. On h7. White wants to play, pawn promotes to queen at h8, and seize the initiative. Knight g6 played by black. King f5. Knight h8. On g4. Knight g6. On g5. Knight h8. King e5. King g6. King d5. Knight f7. King c6. King takes h7. King takes b6. Knight takes g5. On the 5. King g6. On a 6. Knight e4. On a 7. White considers playing, pawn promotes to queen at a 8, and seize the initiative. King takes f6 was chosen by black. Pawn promotes to queen at a 8. White is looking to play, queen takes e4, and secure a stronghold in the game. King e5. White is in a commanding position. Let's go to the next game. White played. Knight c3. Pause the video to spot black's next move. On g4. King g3. White intends to play, king takes g4, and take decisive advantage. King g5 move preferred by black. King f2. King takes f5. King e3. King e5. King d3. King f4. Black is preparing to play. King f3. Knight b1. On g3. Knight d2 check. King g4. King c2. On g2, and establish a winning position. Knight b1 was chosen by white. On g3. Black wants to play. On g2. King c2. Pawn promotes to queen at g1, and increase their advantage significantly. King e2 was chosen by white. On the 5. Knight d2. On a4. Black considers playing. On a3. Knight b1. On a2. Knight c3. Pawn promotes to queen at b1, and secure a stronghold in the game. Knight b1 move preferred by white. King e4. Knight c3 check. King e5. Black intends to play. On g2. King f2. On a3, and take decisive advantage. Knight b1 move preferred by white. King d4. King f3. King c5. Black might go for. King b4. King takes g3. On a3. Knight takes a3. King takes a3. King f4. King a4, and secure a stronghold in the game. Knight d2 played by white. On a3. Knight b1. On a2. Black is preparing to play, pawn promotes to queen at ax b1, and secure a stronghold in the game. Knight d2 played by white. King b4. Black considers playing, pawn promotes to queen at a1, and take decisive advantage. King g2 played by white. King c3. Black is preparing to play, king takes d2, and take decisive advantage. Knight f3 played by white. Pawn promotes to rook at a1. Knight h4. Black has a decisive advantage. Let's go to the next game. Black played. On g5. Pause the video to analyze white's next move. Black considers playing, pawn takes h4, and establish a winning position. Knight takes g5 was chosen by white. Knight f2. On e6. White intends to play. On e7. Knight d3. Pawn promotes to queen at e8 and increase their advantage significantly. Knight d3 played by black. Knight f3. Knight b4 check. King d1. White's idea is to play. On e7. Pawn c2 check. King d2. Pawn promotes to queen at c1 check. King takes c1 and dominate the board. King b3 played by black. Black is aiming to play. Pawn c2 check. King d2. King b2 and establish a winning position. Knight e1 was chosen by white. White's idea is to play. On e7. King c4. Pawn promotes to queen at e8. King takes d4. Queen b5. Pawn c2 check. King d2 and gain a significant edge. Knight c6 was chosen by black. On g5. Knight e7. On h5. White is looking to play. King c1. Knight c6. Knight c2. King c4. Pawn g6. Pawn h6. Pawn g7. Knight e7. Knight e3 check and secure a strong hold in the game. King b2 was chosen by black. Knight d3 check. King b1. Pawn g6. White might go for pawn takes h7 and put immense pressure on the opponent. Pawn h6 was chosen by black. On g7. Knight g8. King e2. White wants to play. Knight b4. King a1. King e3. King b1. King f4 and dominate the board. Knight e7 played by black. King f3. Knight g8. King f4. King c2. Black considers playing king takes d3 and gain a significant edge. Knight c5 was chosen by white. King c1. King f5. King b2. Knight a4 check. King c2. King g6. White is setting up to play. King f7. King d3. Knight takes c3. King takes d4. King takes g8 and put immense pressure on the opponent. King d3 move preferred by black. Knight takes c3. King takes d4. King f7. King e5. King takes g8. King takes e6. Black is on the verge of defeat. Let's go to the next game.